Hello, I'm Russell Coker. I'm just going to give a quick talk about Oracle Cloud as a introduction to it. Oracle Cloud currently has one of the best free tiers available of any of the cloud projects. You can have two AMD64 virtual machines, each having 1 gig of RAM, or you can have a combination of ARM virtual machines totaling up to 4 CPU cores and 24 gigs of RAM. By default, when you create an ARM virtual machine, it'll give you 1 CPU core and 6 gigs of RAM, which is a fairly respectable virtual machine, and the CPU core is fairly fast too. So when you sign up for the project, you need to give a credit card, which won't be billed, but just to verify that you're a real person, not a spammer. You have to use the web interface to then create the virtual machines. First thing to note is the interface can be a little confusing, so I recommend making plenty of bookmarks of all the things that you want to do, because often you can't easily find a way to get back to the page you're previously on, and if you have them all bookmarked, then it's a lot easier. So first thing to do is go to the compute section and create an instance. So when you tell it to create an instance, it'll give it a name by default, which will be some sort of random name. You can change it to anything you like, make it something that means something to you, or just leave it as instance hyphen date hyphen random number. Then you can choose the image and shape. Choose the shape first, because the shape can determine which images are valid, even though the shape's below at the bottom of the list. For the shape, there's a shape series. You can choose AMD, Intel, or Ampere. Ampere is the ARM-based processor, which gives you the most powerful virtual machine, so that's what I recommend using. When you select that shape, then you can, I'll select one now. You can then select the number of CPU cores and the amount of memory for it. So you could have all 24 gigs of memory associated to one virtual machine and all CPU cores, but usually you want to use less. Also, I think that the way it works is you can have more than 24 gigs of RAM for a fraction of a month and not be billed for it. Although what you would usually want to do is have the option of running your virtual machines 24/7 without worrying about going over time. So you choose the smaller ones. So once you've selected the shape, then you select an image. So the main images are Oracle, there's Ubuntu, CentOS, and Oracle Linux. I found that Oracle Linux and Ubuntu have been good options. I haven't tried CentOS yet, because I found that Oracle Linux and Ubuntu have done what I need to do. Oracle Linux is based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux, so it's very similar to CentOS in many ways. And Ubuntu, I think you're all familiar with what that's about. So then once you've selected the image and tell it to create, it will take about 5 minutes to create the image. And then you can, sorry, I forgot a step. One important step is to set up the SSH keys. So you can, the default option is to generate a key pair, in which case you have to save the private key at least. I recommend saving both the private key and the public key just for completeness, although you really wouldn't have a need for the public key. The private key is then used for logins. You can also upload your own public keys in a file in .pub, or paste in an SSH key. And then you click on create, and it'll take usually about 5 minutes to create a virtual machine. So you've got time for a coffee break while waiting for that, or to read up some of the documentation on it. Then once you've created it, the next thing you want to do is set up the networking. So you go to Cluster Networks, to link at the left, and, sorry, not Cluster Networks. When you click on the name of an instance, which is a link, it will then give you a list of resources at the left of the screen, in the left sidebar, to allow you to do various things. So one option is the console connection. That works on Oracle Linux. It doesn't work on Ubuntu, and I haven't tried it on the other distributions that are available. So with the console connection, it just gives you basically a root login prompt. Then for login to the system, the instance at the top of the screen there is the instance access in the right column. Gives you a public IP address and your SSH to that address, with and also tell you the username to use. With a Oracle Linux instance, it'll give the username of OPC, which you log into. And you have to run sudo minus /bin/bash to run a root shell. And for Ubuntu, you have to log in as the username Ubuntu, and then again run sudo to get to root. And then once you've got root, you can easily edit the .sh/authorized keys file to give yourself direct SSH access as root, which is what I do. There is debate about whether you should allow root logins or not on servers. My opinion is that it is not generally a problem, but I think it's very clear that root logins for test servers aren't a problem, and it makes it a lot easier to get things done. So I recommend allowing that. Then you can click on the attached VNICs section, which VNICs are virtual network interface cards, and that will show you the information on that. You can click on the subnet name under the subnet or VLAN section, and that will then take you to the security lists. So by default there'll be one security list, which we call the default security list for VCN number. So you click on that, and then it gives you the rules, which by default will be allowing ICMP and TCP to port 22 for SSH. So what you want to do then is add more rules for the other service you want to run, because usually a machine running SSH isn't very useful. So you click on Add Ingress Rules, and don't select stateless, because you want to have track state so it allows the return packets. The IP protocol will usually be TCP. For the source CIDR section, you want to have the source addresses, which will usually be 0.0.0.0/0 for any address in the world in IPv4, or ::0/0 for any address in the world on IPv6. And then you can give the destination port range, which is what you normally want to do. So you might put, for example, 80,443 to enable access to HTTP and HTTPS. And then click on Add Ingress Rules, and it will add new rules to the firewall, which will be pretty much instantly working. And then you can run your web server and start doing some stuff. Okay, I think that's a good basic introduction to it. Thanks for your time.